I want to have a much needed discussion about the nuclear bomb of racial slurs, the N word. Everyone has their own relationship with the word, whether it's a loving relationship and you say it all the time, or it's a hate relationship where you abhor the word. Maybe it's a nonchalant relationship and you avoid saying it but aren't offended by hearing it. Or a secret relationship, which, yes, I'm referring to you if you use it only when you think nobody is around to get upset or offended. Now, I did do some reading before I decided to record, but honestly, this is one matter that I don't feel much research is necessary because it's mostly common sense. Nevertheless, I want to make sure I'm stating facts. So I did read a little bit and do some more research than I've already done in the past. Now, at this point, at the very least, even kids know it's a quote unquote bad word. Even if you haven't done any research on the word yourself, I'm sure you understand that it is a racial slur directed at Black people. Just to be clear, it's not just African Americans, although I'll be mainly talking from a point of an American in the United States because I am an American in the United States. But again, it's not just African Americans. The N-word has a Latin root meaning black, and so it is used and has been used as a derogatory term for Black people all over the world. So this is Latin America, where there are Afro, Latinos, and Latinas. The US, of course, Europe, the Aboriginals, that's Australia, and etc. So anywhere where there's a Black person, then this term can be used towards them and is used towards them more than likely. So it literally means black. This is not to be confused with black person, because when this term started being used, Black people were not even considered people. They were reduced to just a thing that was black. 3/5 of a person, if you know anything about US history. So, not a person, just a black thing, only worthy to be owned, something to barter with for other common goods. And so, when people say that, oh, well, they were treated nicely, some slave owners treated Black people nicely. Well, some people treat their cars well and get oil changes every 3 months or 1,000 miles. Some people keep up with their house. Some people keep up with even their shoes and they walk on those. So you can't have it both ways. You can't own something and be a good person. You can't own another person and think that's okay and still be a good person and get credit, quote unquote, for treating that thing well. Now, to dispel a common myth about the N-word, it does not mean ignorant. People think that it's okay to say the N-word or to call somebody the N-word because they're saying, oh, it's not a racial slur. I'm just referring to the fact that they're ignorant. That is not true. And when a Black person says, oh, I'm not offended by the N-word because I'm not an N-word, because I'm not ignorant, that's okay that you're not offended by it. And that's okay that you don't consider yourself an N-word, because you should not consider yourself an N-word. But not on the basis of because you are not ignorant, because that is not what it means. And I put it up here so that you can see where I'm getting that information directly from the dictionary. And there's no, I did do research and I did not find any link to it just meaning ignorant. The Latin root comes from the color black, and if you speak Spanish, you know this because the color is called negro in Spanish, so that's fairly obvious. So I know a lot of people like to say that, but that is not the definition. Now, I basically have two main points I want to get across. One for Black people and one for non-Black people, although I do think everybody should listen to the entire message. But I am going to specifically break that up based on who I'm directing it at. Now, to the Black people, first, let's start there. I need you all to know that you should really just stop saying the N-word. You should not say it. Now, notice I said should not. I did not say you could not. It's not a term of endearment, although I truly understand why you would try to make it into one, and I do applaud the effort. However, it's really not logical. You can't take the word because it's not yours. You did not invent it, and why you would want to take something that was such a big part of your oppression and use it on one another is actually pretty insane when you think about it. Now, if I shot your mom, your mother, are you going to take that gun and say, this is my family's gun now? You're not allowed to shoot us with it, but we're allowed to shoot each other out of love. It sounds completely crazy, right? The N-word is a hateful, disgusting, offensive, oppressive word, no matter who says it, including you. The same way that a gun is a dangerous weapon, no matter who shoots it. Additionally, it's not like we are still segregating in most parts of the U.S. No, we are all cohabitating and coexisting and mixing cultures all over the place. Just like you would look at a Latino or Latina crazy if they were all bumping Spanish music and told you you couldn't sing along. Or if an Asian told you you couldn't watch or repeat anime phrases. Or even crazier, you could watch anime, but you can't repeat any of the phrases. And you can listen to Spanish music, but you can't sing along. If you say it around them, they will say it too. Even if they don't mean to offend anyone, it's just hard to not copy your environment. You can tell what region of the U.S. someone is from by their accent or slang they use. What they are around, that's how they talk. So for non-racist people who are not meaning to offend anyone, you can tell if they are around people or listening to music that uses the N-word if they're saying it too, because like that saying goes, monkey see, monkey do. It's human nature. I mean, that's even why Black people started saying it, if you want to be real. All the white people they were around said it back in the day, and they started saying it too. They were actually referred to by the N-word followed by the last name of their slave owner. So for example, if you were owned by white man Tom Jones, then they would call you N-word Jones. So they knew who you belonged to, but that you were their property. You were Black. So they would start using that term just simply because they were around it, they heard it, even knowing how oppressive it was. They heard it so much that they began to use it themselves. Think about it. To the non-Black people now, this is very important, so thank you for hanging in there. Simply put, you cannot say the N-word. Now, with the Black people, I say you should not, but with non-Black people, you cannot say the N-word. Now, I'm not saying you physically, obviously, so I don't want to see any comments saying, oh, I can say it, said it. But just realistic from a moral standpoint, you cannot say the N-word. Whereas Black people should not say the N-word, you cannot. And I'm repeating that just so I know it's getting in your head. Under no circumstances should you be saying the N-word if you are not Black. This word was created to refer to someone as a color. Not a person, but a color, a thing, property, something to be owned by a real person. Whether you are Asian, Caucasian, Mexican, Indian, Native American, Islander, or any other race, if you are not Black, you should not be saying it. I would even take it a step further to say if you are not Black and identify as Black, you should not be saying it. Now, earlier I used the analogy comparing the N-word to a gun, but let's be more specific here. It is like a heat-seeking gun, but instead of heat, you see where I'm going with this, it seeks Black people. If you're not Black, even if you are something that maybe I'd consider Black, but you just don't identify as Black personally, not somebody who's in denial, like they know they're Black but they don't want to admit it, but they literally say this would be a good one for, say, an Afro-Latina, because say there's some of people who technically, biologically, racially, they are Black, they do have Black ancestors, but they are saying, oh no, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican, I am not Black. They don't identify as Black, which is perfectly fine. Not here to talk about who's who, because the further you go back, we're all the same. But if you don't identify as Black, then you will never understand what it feels like when a Black person is called the N-word or hears it casually thrown around by other races. But just imagine there is a gun whose bullets would only hit you. So when we're in a public space and you look over and see me just casually tossing this gun around between me and my friends, and you're thinking, what the heck? I'm the only person in danger. So you're just watching people throw around a weapon because they know that they can't get hurt. Then if you say something like, hey man, can you not play with that gun? Then I just shrug my shoulders and say, don't worry. I don't mean anything by it. I have the safety on. But that's what non-Black people do all the time with the N-word. They say, oh, I don't mean anything by it. You know, I'm not racist. I'm not, I'm just saying it because I heard it in a song or whatever. But that they don't care because they're not the one that gets hurt by it. So they, you have to kind of have some empathy, but try to think of it from a Black person's point of view. It doesn't matter how you meant it, you still said it. So they either pick up that gun and intentionally, this is non-Black people I'm talking about, they either pick up that gun, the N-word, and intentionally pull the trigger trying to hurt a Black person, or they see no problem because they have the safety on. So they are either trying to hurt a black person or they think that this is not going to hurt a black person. Either way, you're shooting the gun, you're saying the word, you're still going to hurt somebody. And then if someone still winds up hurt, the non-black person will look at the black person like they're in the wrong for being offended or hurt. Like, just because you didn't mean it to hurt them, you weren't saying the N-word because you were calling them 3/5 of a person or property or a slave. You're saying that they don't have a right to be hurt. But the thing is, they have every right to be hurt. So either way it goes, nobody should be using the N-word. Black people really need to get over the idea of trying to own it because they are the victims of it. I can't really tell you all how to grieve and process centuries of abuse, oppression, slavery, murder, rape, being robbed of your culture, being segregated, lynched, beat, having crosses burned in your front yard, having your churches bombed, burned down even to this day, etc. I can only advise that you consider a different direction to take with your grieving process. Because tossing around this word still with all of the history behind it, there is just no way to turn something that evil into a positive. And non-black people, please understand that the N-word in itself is a hateful, racist word, and you cannot use it without spreading that hateful, racist culture. And if you slip and say it, which is understandable, it may happen because you're listening to the music, and that's why I say, black people, you should not say it. Because if you're saying it, non-black people will say it. But if you say it by accident, you're singing along to music or something, and someone ever calls you out on it, just apologize. Or even if you feel like you don't need to apologize, just say okay and stop saying it. Because there is no way to continue saying it after someone calls it to your attention. And you know the history. And now you've listened to this. And you continue to say it and not be racist yourself. So to everyone, I would advise you, just stop using it. Correct others when you hear them use it. And let's all just put the gun down.
I'm expressing this imagery cause no man will explain it with ya. They too macho, I'm Picasso just trying to paint a picture. We are just slaves to the system. We shall be brave on this mission. We should be standing together, but we misbehaving and tripping. Me, I have made a decision. Gotta start paying attention. Mentally staying the same. Let's break out these chains, let's pray for a difference. Slave mentality. Slave mentality. Slave mentality. Slave mentality. Slave mentality. Slave mentality. Slave mentality.